Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Green, Orange Audubon Society president, and I'm going to be presenting today on Plants for Birds, the caterpillar connection. And it's going to be a lot about the birds at first, and then I'm going to get to the caterpillars, and then I'm going to get to the plants. So at Mead Botanic Garden, which is a songbird migration hotspot in fall and spring, the birders are really having a great time each year in fall and spring. This was before COVID, and the numbers of people on our trips was large. Now we have smaller ones. And the whole thing is that these warblers are gorgeous little songbirds, about 4.5 inches. And there are 37 species in the eastern United States that pass through Florida going north or south to the tropics. These photos are by Frank Salmon. He's one of our members who caught the bug for photographing warblers while at Mead. And they're thought to be originally tropical. Why is that? Because there are many more species in the tropics, and our species spend 2/3 of the year in the tropics. And most of these are not our species. They don't breed with us. There's just a very small number, 3 or 4, that breed with us. The rest go farther north, or they're just passing through in migration. Now, migration is dangerous for birds, so I'm going to try to establish why they would do it. There are hawks and weather problems. Well, many species winter in the Caribbean, and those don't have that far to go. It's just a hip hop through the islands, up Florida Peninsula and farther north. But those that winter in South America or Central America have a big decision to make. Either they go up through the desert of Mexico and Central America, or across the Gulf of Mexico, 600 miles, which could be very dangerous if against the winds. Now, I don't mean that they each make a decision. That's been made by natural selection over the years, over the eons, by each species. Each species does it a specific way. But I'm trying to establish how difficult this is. So why do they do it? What's the reward for the risk of a dangerous flight? It is that the eastern forests are leafing out at that time in April and May, and the new leaves are eaten by caterpillars. Tiny little caterpillars. Well, these are like about 1/2 inch, but there's all sizes, mostly small ones, and they're perfect food for nestlings. So these songbirds are picking them out of the leaves with their very short little bills. Now, caterpillars have exoskeletons like all insects, but they're softer exoskeletons, so no problem for the young nestlings to eat. And it's easy for a warbler to pick them out with that little beak. And they're also rich in carotenoids, and that may be the source of the colors of these warblers, because they're very showy little birds. So songbird migration is timed with the spring leafing out of the deciduous forests. And it's not just deciduous forests. Conifers have new growth and caterpillars too. But to review this concept, warblers and other songbirds need caterpillars to feed their young, and I'm talking little caterpillars. And in this case, this is in migration. They also may need them just to sustain their own selves. And in winter and in migration, berries and seeds sustain the birds. And I think this is a more familiar concept to everybody, that you plant plants with berries for the birds. But this caterpillar concept, I hope you're going to get by the end of my talk. All right, well, forests are decreasing, and that is a real problem for birds. In addition to the forests of the eastern United States being cut bit by bit, starting in the 1600s when the European settlers came, you have the tropical forests being cut, and then fires Studies over the past 50 years show that bird populations are down 2.9 billion birds in different habitats. And so what can we do? What can we do? We have to learn to live with caterpillar damage on your plants. Use no pesticides. That's the first thing. And then reduce your lawn and change the palette of plants in your yard to plants that foster caterpillars, the native plants of your area. And that's what I'll talk about now for the rest of my talk. All right, the person who's the real expert on this is Dr. Doug Tallamy, and he has 2 best-selling books from 2007, Bringing Nature Home, How You Can Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants, and then more recently, last year, Nature's Best Hope, a new approach to conservation that starts in your yard. He's an entomologist at the University of Delaware, and he has grad students that have done studies. For instance, his student Desiree Naranjo studied the Carolina chickadee. And if you were there, I would ask you, do you have chickadees in your yard? If you do, that is you're doing something very right, because it's a very fussy little bird and it needs a lot of these caterpillars. So it needs these native plants that the caterpillars live on. Yeah, Desiree's study showed that if you have more than 30% non-native plants in your yard, that you will not have chickadees. So this was done a little farther north, and but in general, whenever I ask audiences if they have chickadees, it's the people who are native plant gardeners who have them. So to learn about your local native plants, you go to the Florida Native Plant Society, of which our local chapter is the Tarflower chapter. Just look up Florida Native Plant Society, FNPS. And National Audubon Society also has a Plants for Birds effort, and you can actually Google this and put your zip code in, and it'll pull up a list of appropriate plants that birds can use, native plants that will have caterpillars, or perhaps nectar plants, or berried plants. And Orange Audubon Society, which is our newsletter cover, we have programs on it at least once a year, and we articles on it several times a year. We're very into plants for birds. It's really needed, as Dr. Doug Tallamy points out. And we have in the past given yards tours. This is my yard. I've been working really hard on it to make it very high percentage native, and I do have chickadees. And I just want to show you that when we first moved into this house, there were the typical foundation plants around, of course, azaleas, and I've mostly kept them, but pittosporums and viburnums, the non-native viburnums, and they're waxy, and they are not good for caterpillars. They're actually selected in horticulture for not having any pests and no caterpillars. So we took those out. Now, Dr. Tallamy's first book has a list on one page in the book of the different species of trees and the number of species of caterpillars that they support, starting with oaks as the top, and then willow. Now, of course, you can't really plant willow around your house, but and I'm going to review some of these plants in this next part of my talk. Now, Orange Audubon has done our own version of a plant list suitable for birds and butterflies, and we have that available on our website, and I will make sure that that is shared so you can get to this flyer. Very useful. So now I'm going to go through a couple plant groups really quickly. Oaks are at the top with 534 species, and these people are looking up at oaks for the warblers, because that's where they are, because that's where the caterpillars are. Now, willows is not something you're going to put in your yard because it's a wetland plant and they expand rapidly. But just to know that that is the next in line from Dr. Tallamy's research, with 456 species of caterpillars around the country. But this one I can recommend, wild cherry. That's next on the line with 456 species. And Of wild cherries, there's several species in Central Florida, but this is the one I would recommend, Prunus serratina, or black cherry. You don't want to plant the cherry laurel. That one can be very aggressive. It's a native, but it's very aggressive. But the Prunus serratina, the wild cherry or black cherry, has little berries that are just the right size for the birds and lots of caterpillar activity. Now, one thing that people don't like is the eastern tent caterpillar nests are found on the wild cherry and like this. But for birders, the yellow-billed cuckoo eats the tent caterpillars with its very sharp, strong bill. So, you know, there's silver lining to having tent caterpillars. The next plant I want to profile is sugarberry, and that's not even on Dr. Talamy's list because it's a southern tree, and his list is from, he's based at south of Philadelphia, so he's got a more northern list. But if you go to the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive, it's the tree that's just past that little welcome shelter that Orange Audubon has. On the left, that grove of trees where people look for the songbirds is sugarberry. So it does attract a lot of caterpillars. I originally planted it in my yard to hope to attract these beautiful butterflies. There's two species of butterflies that breed on it, the hackberry emperor and the tawny emperor. I have not seen those in my yard, but I have seen warblers eating caterpillars, little caterpillars off the leaves. So it's been a success and it grows quickly. Another one I want to profile that obviously isn't in Talamy's work because it's a southern tree is the sable or cabbage palm. And what in specific, you have undersides of the leaves get this ratty looking look, and this stuff is frass. It's excrement of this caterpillar, the palm leaf skeletonizer, which here's the adult of. So you see that these are really tiny little moths that make these small caterpillars. And this beautiful warbler, the yellow-throated warbler, is a specialist in this. And I always look in the palms, undersides of the palms, for this yellow-throated warbler, particularly in the winter. And the sable or cabbage palm, which is our state tree, by the way, also has fruit that's good for birds. Just the right size and sweet. Now I'm kind of wrapping it up already, but butterfly caterpillars are not optimal for birds. Those of you who do butterfly gardening, you got to think in a different way if you want to bring the birds, the caterpillars, the little caterpillars for the birds. Because look at this, it's got all these bumps and colors. Colors tell a bird, stay away, learn once is not the best. And they actually have little things that exude chemicals. So butterfly caterpillars is another thing. You want it for the butterflies, but it's not for the birds. It's not for the small birds, maybe a blue jay, but not for the warblers. So again, what are the best trees for caterpillars in Central Florida? The oaks, and that includes all the species, cherries, but I mentioned you don't want to get a laurel cherry. I don't think they even sell them in nurseries anyway. But the black cherry or wild cherry, Prunus serratina, it would be a good choice. And you could also go with Chickasaw plum, which is from a little farther north. And then the sugar, hackberries, and then sable palm. Those are the top four I would recommend for the birds. Where to buy native plants? Not here at this fruit stand. They're selling plants that are very easy to grow and possibly may turn invasive in your yard. They're not going to be the natives. They maybe have waxy leaves without pests so that they don't have any insects on them. And, you know, they could add to the attractiveness of your yard, but they're not native. And if you're trying to attract the birds, you should not buy there. You can go to the Florida Association of Native Nurseries website, FANN, and put in any plant or find a nursery by location And this is an excellent website with actually a lot of information on it. And this is how you can find your plants. And in terms of where to buy native plants, it's a specialized market. At the moment, these are the two big nurseries left, and Green Images in Christmas is really just specializing in silver palmetto and kunti and most of the other plants. You have to be someone like me that loves to pick through and find treasures. I would recommend more readily that you go to Green Isle Gardens in Groveland. And that one is a well-run nursery with a great selection. But don't forget in October to go to a Backyard Biodiversity Day at Mead Botanic Gardens. That's a great place to buy native plants from the Charflower chapter. And you can ask them your questions. They're very knowledgeable. Charflower members are selling the plants. And the Charflower chapter sometimes has other sales. You can join them and follow their announcements. They're at the Lou Gardens plant sale in March as well. So I believe this is my last slide. And I want to tell you that to hear Doug Tallamy himself, go to YouTube and put in Orange Audubon Society and look for the show on creating a homegrown national park. And then it's an hour-long presentation by Dr. Tallamy, and very, very well done. So I wish I could hear your questions, but you can actually email me at info@orangeaudubonfl.org. And here is our Orange Audubon website. And we have actually programs every Thursday night called Bird Chat at 7 o'clock every Thursday night that you can go to our Facebook page to find out how to register for. And I believe this will be put in the introductory material for this talk, how to get to that. So I've enjoyed talking with you, and I hope you get the idea about the caterpillars for the birds. Thanks very much.